What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Elite Fantasy Hoops with Mike Zakarian, and today we are going to look at three of the worst picks in fantasy basketball.
Oh no! We suck again!
Now, if you're like, hey, Mike, why are you being so negative? Don't worry. Our next video, we'll look at three of the best picks. Now, for those unfamiliar with Underdog Best Ball, the way it works is we draft a team one time before the season starts, and then each week they optimize giving us the highest scoring team from the roster we've constructed. So you will play each week 2 guards, 2 wings, 1 big, and a flex. Now, let's get started with my first pick, someone who I love as a basketball player. For those who have been watching my content for a long time, I may have even placed a sizable bet on him to win Rookie of the Year. But currently, the Oklahoma City big man, Chet Holmgren, is being drafted 20th overall in Underdog drafts. Now, if we take a look at the bigs that are getting drafted before Chet Holmgren, you see Nikola Jokic. Sure, that makes sense. Wembanyama, of course. Joel Embiid, Anthony Davis, and then you see Sabonis right there, who's going on average 8th overall in drafts. And then there's a little drop down to Chet Holmgren. Now, Chet is coming off a nice rookie campaign. He averaged 16 points and 8 boards a game, but the real value came from him averaging just under 3 blocks a game and almost a steal per game. Another thing that's pretty interesting about Chet, I think a lot of people think he's injury prone because he did get hurt that first summer league and then miss his entire official rookie year. He played all 82 games last year. Some call him the Cal Ripken Jr. of Amish looking guys. But let's take a look at some of the bigs that are being drafted after Chet Holmgren. If you wait 6 more picks, you can get Alpi Şengün from the Houston Rockets. If you wait 9 more picks, you're looking at Zion. The 33rd pick is usually Bam Adebayo. You see Karl Anthony Towns has an ADP of 39. If you want to wait even longer for your first big, you see Evan Mobley at 42 and Jaren Jackson Jr. at 49. Now, I'm not saying Chet Holmgren can't have a monster year. I think he's only going to get better. If he goes 16-8 in his rookie year, no reason he can't go like 19-10 and still continue to put up those big block numbers. But this offseason, the Oklahoma City Thunder also added former New York Knicks Bing Bong Boy himself, Isaiah Hartenstein. Now, I don't know how Dagnall is going to construct his rotations, whether they're going to play Isaiah next to Chet or if Hartenstein just comes off the bench and they're kind of swapping for each other. But the addition of Hartenstein, not to mention Caruso, they have options to maybe not play Chet all 82 games, maybe not give him the massive minute load. And I can't stress enough, I do like Chet Holmgren. I think he's a great play. But again, when we scroll down to some of these other bigs, like Şengün last year played 63 games before he got hurt. He averaged 21-9 with over a steal a game and just under 1 block a game. Zion, as we mentioned earlier, averaged 23-6-5 with a steal and just under a block a game. And he played 70 games. And in a later video, we'll talk a little bit more about roster construction and the depth in different positions. But we probably only need to take 2 or 3 bigs every draft, maybe 4 if you're feeling frisky. So to use the 20th pick on Chet Holmgren and to see all of the other big options later on in the draft, it feels like bad value. So again, hashtag Thunder Up. I love Chet Holmgren. His recent appearance on the podcast with Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye was funny, but he's just not going to be on a lot of my teams. All right, this next one's a little bit tricky because it was hard to find a wing that I thought had terrible value because as we're going to discuss again in a future video, the wing position, the depth kind of runs out very quickly. As we look at ADP, you see guys like Giannis and Tatum, Paolo Banchero, LeBron James, Scotty Barnes, KD, Siakam, Jaylen Brown, Julius Randle, so many good wings. But then all of a sudden, we get to this Paul George, Jalen Johnson, Franz Wagner, and you're starting to see the cliff get scary. If we scroll down even further, we got Michael Porter Jr. That's when the cliff really happened. But we're going back to the newest edition of the Villanova New York Knicks, Mikal Bridges. Bridges is going 45th overall. And I like Mikal Bridges as an NBA player. I know his season with the Brooklyn Nets last year was really weird. There's quiet quitting, and then there's what Mikal Bridges did last season for the Nets. And I'll be readily available to consume L's if Bridges does come out and return to that weird form we saw from him 2 seasons ago for the Nets after he got traded from the Phoenix Suns. But he's coming to a New York Knicks team that has Jalen Brunson, who is just fresh off an MVP caliber season. Julius Randle, who's coming back from injury. They re-signed OG Anunoby. We know Josh Hart's going to play 55 minutes a game. Dante DiVincenzo, Deuce McBride. There are so many shots to go around. And when I think about the Knicks in general, I kind of just want Jalen Brunson, maybe Julius Randle if he dips. But if Mikal Bridges goes back to the winning player that he was at the Phoenix Suns, he's going to take on offensive wings in the opposing teams, and he's going to knock down corner threes. So when I look at some of the other wings going behind Mikal Bridges, we've got the second year from the Buzz City Hornets, Brandon Miller, who's just going 2 picks behind Mikal Bridges. Now, sure, there could be some concern for Brandon Miller as LaMelo Ball returns, but typically we see these players who have solid rookie campaigns take another big leap in their second year. Shout out Jalen Williams. And then right after that, we have the Washington Wizard, Kyle Kuzma, and then that piece of shit Miles Bridges also on the Charlotte Hornets. And then if we wait a few more picks, there's Jimmy Butler and Brandon Ingram. And I would just much rather bet on Jimmy Butler heading into a contract year, or even Brandon Ingram, even though that situation's a little up in the air. I just feel like there's far more upside on Miller, Kuzma, Miles Bridges, Jimmy Butler, and Brandon Ingram than really on Mikal Bridges. And again, this isn't even a shot at the New York Knicks. I think the Knicks are going to have a great season, probably vie for the first seed in the Eastern Conference with Porzingis most likely not playing until February. But I just think besides Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, it's going to be tough to get massive fantasy value from some of these New York Knicks unless they get riddled with injuries from playing with Tom Tibbs. All right, and the last player we're going to take a look at is coming from the guard position. And this one was a little tricky as well because the guard position is just so deep, as we'll see here in a second. And I promise you, this has nothing to do with the fact that Derek White jumped his minutes for Team USA, but it's Tyrese Haliburton. Haliburton started gangbusters, and I don't know if gangbusters is a thing people still say, but he started off last season incredibly hot, taking the Indiana Pacers all the way to the IST championship. You know, the only banner the Lakers actually hung last year. But Haliburton was incredible, putting up monster night after monster night, continuously putting up numbers like 25 and 12. But then he tweaked that hamstring in January and was never really the same Tyrese Haliburton. Still a very good basketball player. I think the Indiana Pacers are going to be very competitive this year. And let me just be clear. I think Haliburton is still going to have a great year. But let's just look at the guards going right before him and right after. Right now, Haliburton is guard number 5, just behind names like Luka, SGA, Ant-Man, and Ja Morant. But right after Haliburton, going a few picks later, you have guys like Jalen Brunson, Trae Young, De'Aaron Fox, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, Steph Curry, LaMelo Ball, all going before pick 30. And I honestly think you could just shake a magic 8-ball to decide who's going to be the highest scorer out of all of those. You could make a case for every single one of them. Spida finally got paid from the Cleveland Cavs. They got a new coach in Kenny Atkinson. Maybe he goes crazy. De'Aaron Fox, they're not going to focus on defense anymore, so he's going to light it up. Devin Booker's going to have to carry the Phoenix Suns, assuming KD misses a ton of time. Ice Trae Young, they no longer have DeJounte Murray. The offense is his. They don't play defense. They're going to lose every game 155 to 144. Or Jalen Brunson, like we just talked about. Steph Curry, there's no Klay Thompson. He's going to have to take 55 shots a game. But the real reason I think this is wasted opportunity, taking Tyrese Haliburton with the 15th overall pick. But watch what happens when we scroll to pick like 50. You see Jamal Murray, Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams, Kobe White, Cam Thomas, Emmanuel Quickley, Desmond Bane. The guard position is just so deep. And when we talked about the lack of wings and how that cliff happened so quickly, would you rather start with Scotty Barnes and Jamal Murray or Tyrese Haliburton and Kyle Kuzma? So again, I can't stress enough how much I actually like those as NBA players. Mikal Bridges is going to make the Knicks so much better and so much deeper on the defensive end. Chet Holmgren is going to blossom in year 2 with OKC, who's most likely going to be the #1 seed in the West. And Tyrese Haliburton, heck, he made Team USA. He might not be playing a ton right now, but clearly he's a top-tier guard in the league. But when we take into account roster construction and trying to win that sweet, sweet $100,000 from Underdog, those guys are just going way too soon in these drafts. And before we wrap up, let me know in the comments, who do you think is the most mispriced player in Underdog right now? And as I mentioned at the top of the video, don't worry, we'll bring positive vibes back later in the week with guys that we're excited to be drafting. And if this is your first time watching the video, thanks for tuning in. Do me a favor, smash the subscribe button, put some stuff in the comments, hit the notification bell, do all of the things that will fill the hole in my heart. Thanks for watching.